I came home from work just like I always do. Same route, same key in the same door, same creaky floorboard just inside the entrance. Everything felt normal. First, I kicked off my shoes and dropped my bag next to the couch, like I always do. But then I noticed something that made me pause. My bedroom door was slightly open. Not wide, just cracked. The kind of opening you'd expect if someone had just slipped inside and didn't close it all the way. I usually keep it shut during the day, mostly because I don't like coming home to see my unmade bed staring at me. Still, I told myself I probably just forgot to close it this morning. I walked over, pushed it shut with a soft click, and went to the kitchen to make coffee. But the nagging feeling didn't go away. While the water was boiling, I turned to glance at the fridge, and that's when the second thing hit me. One of the magnets was upside down. Not just any magnet, but the one from my trip to Croatia, the only souvenir I ever actually liked. I have OCD tendencies when it comes to the fridge magnets. That one always goes in the top left corner, perfectly straight. Now it was bottom right, tilted. A small detail, I know. Nothing definitive, but enough to make my stomach tighten. I walked through my apartment slowly, not because I was afraid someone was still there. No, I was afraid I was losing my mind. Every room seemed just slightly off. Nothing huge. The living room lamp was turned slightly to the left. A chair that I always kept pushed in was now pulled out halfway. Even the blinds were drawn differently, not the way I left them. I checked my windows. All locked. Door 2. No signs of forced entry. And yet, I couldn't shake the thought. Someone had been here, or maybe was still here. That night, I hardly slept. I kept thinking I heard soft creaks and faint tapping noises, but every time I got up to check, the apartment was empty, silent, perfectly normal, too normal. And that's when the real fear started. What if nothing had happened at all? What if everything I noticed was just me? I'd always thought of myself as someone rational. I don't believe in ghosts or demons or any of that, but I do believe in psychology, stress, delusion. And in that moment, the thought that my own mind might be turning against me, that was more terrifying than any ghost. Something was wrong. I just didn't know if it was with the world or with me. The next morning, I woke up groggy and drained. I must have dozed off for a few hours at most, but it didn't feel like real sleep. More like my body gave up for a while, even though my mind kept racing. I decided to do something that felt a bit ridiculous, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something in my apartment was changing when I wasn't looking. So I started documenting it. I took photos of every room, the living room, my kitchen counters, the exact position of the remote on the table, how the towels hung in the bathroom, even the way I left the toilet seat. I wanted proof. Proof that I wasn't imagining things. That evening, I came home and immediately pulled up the pictures on my phone to compare. At first glance, everything looked the same. Same couch cushions. Same dishes in the sink. Same socks on the floor. I laughed at myself. Maybe I was being paranoid. But then I saw it. The plant by the window, a little succulent I barely remembered owning, it was turned a full 90 degrees. I checked the photo again, zooming in. Yeah, no doubt. This morning it faced the room. Now it faced the wall. It was such a small change. Insignificant. But it hadn't moved on its own. I checked the windows again. Still locked from the inside. The door was exactly how I left it, with the security chain in place. No signs of anyone entering or leaving. But things were still different. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the possibility that someone was coming in when I wasn't home. A neighbor with a copy of my keys? A former tenant? I even checked behind the shower curtain and inside the wardrobe. Nothing. But the worst part came just before bed. I walked into my bedroom and froze. On my nightstand, next to the alarm clock, was a folded piece of paper. I don't leave notes for myself. I don't use paper anymore. I didn't even recognize the handwriting. It only said 4 words. You're not going crazy. That was the moment I realized something had changed. It wasn't just my paranoia anymore. Something or someone was in my apartment, and they didn't want me to doubt it. The note stayed on my nightstand for hours. I couldn't bring myself to throw it away, nor could I leave it untouched. It felt radioactive, like handling it too much would make things worse, like it was some kind of invitation. I eventually slid it into a drawer, but I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, eyes wide open in the dark, listening to every creak of the apartment, every pipe gurgle, every neighbor's muffled footsteps. But nothing came, or at least nothing I could hear with certainty. The next day, I left for work as usual. I took pictures again before I walked out the door. More than usual this time. I documented everything, even the fridge magnets. I needed something to compare, some way to track reality. When I got home that night, the door was locked, the chain still in place. The smell of my apartment was exactly the same, that faint mix of dust and coffee grounds. But one thing hit me immediately. The lights were off. I always leave the hallway light on. It's just a habit. It was one of those tiny things you don't think about until it breaks the pattern. I went through the apartment slowly. Living room, same. Couch pillows hadn't moved. Kitchen, untouched. Nothing on the counters. Bedroom. Bed was still messy the way I left it. But when I opened the bathroom door, my heart started pounding. There was water on the floor. Small puddles. Bare footprints. Not mine. I hadn't showered in over a day. I reached for the sink and turned the knob. Dry. The bathtub faucet wasn't dripping either. So where did the water come from? I stared at the mirror, fogged slightly, as if someone had taken a shower just minutes ago. I snapped a photo, then turned to leave. But as I stepped out, something caught my ear. A sound. Just one. A sharp, soft click. Like a fingernail tapping porcelain. I turned back fast. Silence. No one was there. But the shower curtain. It swayed ever so slightly. As if someone had pulled it and let go. I ripped it open. Nothing. But my body knew what my eyes didn't see. I wasn't alone. That night, I slept on the couch. Or tried to. Every light in the apartment was on. And for the first time in my life, I considered the possibility that I was being watched. I woke up on the couch to the sound of birds outside my window. Morning light seeped through the curtains, but I barely felt rested. My back ached. My eyes were dry. My mind, however, was wide awake. Before doing anything else, I checked the bathroom. Dry. No footprints. No fogged mirror. It was like the night before never happened. But the photo I'd taken was still on my phone. Proof that I hadn't imagined it. Or at least that something had been there. I sat down at my kitchen table and opened the gallery of photos I'd been taking since this all started. I began comparing them side by side with how the apartment looked now. That's when I saw it. The living room bookshelf, specifically the order of the books. I always stacked them in size order. Tallest on the left, shortest on the right. But now the middle two were reversed. It was so minor, barely noticeable. But I hadn't done that. I checked the picture from yesterday. My memory was correct. Someone or something had switched them. It was the first undeniable, physical proof that things were shifting without my involvement. I stood up and started going through the whole apartment. The couch cushions, one was slightly rotated. The microwave clock had been reset to midnight, even though I hadn't lost power. A spoon I always keep in the sink was now in the drawer. Each thing was tiny, dismissible on its own. But together, they formed a pattern, or worse, a message. A message that someone was inside while I was away, or while I slept, moving things, testing how much I would notice. I felt paranoid, yet more certain than ever that something was deeply wrong. And not just with the apartment, but with me. I started wondering if maybe I had been sleepwalking, blacking out, doing things I couldn't remember. But no, that didn't explain the note, the footprints, the sound. I tried to shake it off and go about my day. I turned on the TV, hoping for a distraction. Static. I switched channels. Nothing. Just white noise. That had never happened before. And then the note. It was back. On my bed this time. The same paper. Same handwriting. You're not seeing it all yet. I didn't know what that meant. I still don't. But I knew then that I had to get out. I grabbed my keys, threw on a jacket, and left the apartment without even locking the door. I needed air. I needed people. I needed something that wasn't my apartment. But as I stepped outside and turned to lock my car, I saw it. In the reflection of the back window. A shape, brief, dark, standing in my second-floor window, watching me. I looked up. Nothing there. But I swear to you it had been watching. I didn't go far that day. I just drove, aimlessly, circling blocks, avoiding the thought of going home. Every time I hit a red light, I checked my rearview mirror, half expecting to see that same figure sitting in the back seat. But nothing followed me. No one called. No one cared. When the sun began to set, I parked at a small diner on the edge of town. I sat at the far end of the counter, ordered coffee I didn't even drink, and stared at the wall. I kept wondering, what's real? Was I having a breakdown? Was I hallucinating everything? The notes, the rearranged objects, the shape in the reflection. Could it all be a result of isolation and stress? But the thing that kept me grounded, the anchor I couldn't explain away, was the photo. The one I took of the wet floor and footprints in the bathroom. That wasn't imagined. That was real. After several hours, I forced myself to return home. I parked slowly, looked up at my dark window. Nothing. No figure. No sign. I stepped inside cautiously, half expecting the power to be out, or every item to be upside down. But everything looked normal. Too normal. I walked room by room, phone light in hand. No notes. No sound. No movement. Just the silence of a place that wanted to appear safe. I even laughed to myself. Not out of humor, but desperation. And then I noticed something. A new photo on my phone. I hadn't taken it. It was a blurry image, but unmistakably from inside my apartment, from my hallway pointing directly at my bedroom door. Taken from the height of someone standing. Someone holding the phone. It was time-stamped for 3:12 a.m. Last night. I slept on the couch the entire night. I dropped the phone. My heart pounded louder than anything in the room. I didn't sleep that night, or the one after. Eventually, I started staying with friends. I told them I had plumbing issues or noise complaints, or that the apartment just didn't feel right. I didn't dare tell them the truth. Weeks passed. I moved out. New place. New locks. New start. But yesterday, while I was unpacking, I found a familiar piece of paper tucked inside a moving box I never opened. Same handwriting. Same phrasing. You've moved. But I'm still with you. I don't know what's happening to me. I don't know if it's a spirit, a stalker, or my own fractured mind. But if you're hearing this story, that means someone else knows now. Someone else is watching. And maybe, just maybe, that means I'm finally free. But I also know something else. It never really leaves. It just finds new ways to stay hidden.